Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Scott Fain with the Asbury Park and Curtis podcast. How you doing, Ashley?
I'm doing good, Scott. How's everybody else doing today? I hope well. I hope y'all ready for another review of ours. So I'll give Scott back the floor.
I'm taking it. No. So today we're going to be talking about Juanita, the Netflix original movie that they have posted on there. It's from 2019, starring lovely Alfre Woodard. I didn't realize, the thing I didn't realize when I started looking into this is that Clark Johnson was director. I didn't know that he had directed it. That's the, I don't know if you know him, he's been an actor on like Homicide, Life on the Street, and what's the other one that he was on that I liked? He was on The Wire, the last season of The Wire. He played Gus, the newspaper editor in that last season of The Wire. I just loved his character, loved all the stuff that I've seen him in, and I forgot that he was doing directing as well. So this is kind of cool that he did this.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have much of a reference point for him. I don't remember him from The Wire, but that's cool.
Yeah. This movie was, I have to say I enjoyed it. I watched it a couple of times, and as you know, we're going to talk a little bit about it, non-spoilery first, and then we'll get into spoilers just in case someone hasn't seen the film. You can cut us off once we give our grading, and then get a chance to see a breakdown of, step by step, blow by blow of the movie. But this movie actually reminded me of our mother when she left Cleveland. I can remember similar conversations with her, just her wanting to do something else. I mean, we weren't kids. Well, you were kids still living with her a little bit, but she just wanted to get away from family, from everything she knew, and just kind of shake things up.
And she was determined, and I try to keep that same energy now. Like, hey, I'm doing it, so I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, Juanita moves to near Butte, Montana, to a small town called Paper Moon. Our mother moved to Boonville, Mississippi. When she left, and found a lot of peace down there. It was quite
similar. It parallels a lot. Oh, yeah, after we not into the details, because I don't have to pick which child I was. That was all kind of bad.
Well, not the one in jail, ironically.
Yeah, the good one. That wouldn't be me.
Yeah, the good one was good. Yeah, so not to lose anyone. So her 3 kids, just to break down the simplicity of it. She's a nurse in, Ohio?
Like a nurse.
Part of Ohio?
Columbus.
Mm-hmm. Columbus, Ohio. Thank you. Yeah, she was a nurse in nursing home, and got 3 kids. All of them, in some respect, one of them's in the game, selling drugs a little bit. Her daughter's kind of out there living fast and wild, and she got a son that's in prison for not even really his fault. Personally, he was a good dude, just got caught up in some nonsense. And just feels like she's holding them back by enabling them, and decides to shake things up for her own life because she wasn't happy, and pick up the lead for a little while, And that's where just the beginning of her journey starts. And like I said, the journey itself was an interesting place to go, and I did connect with it.
Yeah. And I have a slightly different maybe spin on it. I think more so than running. I mean, I guess I understand where you come from when you say she wanted to force herself to stop enabling her children. I also get the feeling that she's just tired. It reminds me of an episode of The Cosby Show where Claire has nothing left to give.
Yeah. Out. Nothing left to give, Cliff. Nothing left to give.
And I can imagine after years of being a single parent and whatnot, at a certain point you just have nothing left to give. And I think that's where her story derives from.
Mm-hmm. Because I've known, I mean, aside from our mother, I've known women over the years that kind of exhibit like Juanita at some point, you know, single mom, you know, kids varying on a scale between like quote unquote good kids and kids that are not doing so well. I hate to call anyone bad, but, you know, just people that are not doing so well and just kind of feeling that level of frustration and pain and wanting to do something different and not quite knowing how to make that change in your life. So I can appreciate what this movie's trying to do. If I had to give it a grade, actually, what's your grade on this one?
My grade, I give it a B+. I don't have too many negatives, and the negatives I do have aren't really negative. So, in my book. So, I give it about a good B+.
You know what? I was giving it a B. It would have been a little bit higher, but the one criticism that I have of this movie is, weirdly, it's not quite long enough. Like, there were a couple of places where I thought it just moved so quickly. And, you know, I wanted to dig a little deeper and come to understand a little bit more of where these characters are coming from or show a little bit more. But like I said, it wasn't bad. It wasn't lacking.
Yeah,
I just think it could have been
needing more is, it sounds like a B to me too. Because that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's not who nobody wants to be left wanting more either.
Mm-hmm. And it has a little bit of an ambiguous ending, which we can talk about, you know, once we pass the spoiler threshold. But I take nothing away from the artistic desire to create an ambiguous ending, but there's always a weight between that versus spelling out exactly how your story ends and giving me a happy ending or just an ending. You know what I mean?
Now, in that particular sense, the end goal for me was accomplished because I feel like the overarching relationship in this movie is hers with herself. And so ultimately she does set out for a goal and she accomplishes it. Like there are other things and other people, but I think like I said, the core relationship is the one she has with herself, and she kept her word to herself, which I think was pretty dope way to end it.
You might be creating a plus in my grade here. I didn't think about it like that. I did not think about it like that. That's true. She did accomplish what she set out for herself. Let's move on to spoilers. There's not much we can talk about this movie without spoiling it. So now, on to spoilers. So basically, Juanita's a nurse working in Columbus, Ohio. She has her 3 kids that are all doing various degrees of good and bad, and she's just frustrated. Like, I think that first sequence of her, and plus she's doing the talk to the camera thing, which I thought was an interesting choice. I didn't know if I'd like that when the movie started.
Yeah, that's one of the things that prevented it from being an A for me, but also provided comic relief or just like a break to keep the story moving at the same. It was like I didn't quite like it, but I understood why it was there.
Yeah. There were a couple of comic beats in here where she just kind of looks at the camera like, "What? You realize this?"
It makes it quirky. Like, yeah, it separates it from a standard rom-com to me. As well as she has a way of you think she's gonna be a demure older woman, and like you don't expect some of the things that comes out of her mouth, and you're just like, what? Like at a certain point, she called her daughter a hoe, and I'm like, did she call her a hoe?
No,
she did. It's not something I would expect.
She told her baby granddaughter, she's like, you know, your mama a hoe. It's best you know that now. And then, of course, we get our first glimpse right here at the beginning when I think that was around the time that her daughter had just handed their baby to Juanita and said, I haven't been out in 2 days, the girl said. I ain't been out in 2 days to the club. 2 days. And so basically left her home alone with this child instead of taking care of herself. So that was the first time we'd get a chance to meet Blair Underwood, who's playing himself in her fantasies, which I thought was funny.
Which
that
I can appreciate. I vaguely remember the day I was introduced to Blair Underwood. And at that point, well, not in person. I mean, just introduced to my life. And it was at an award show, and I vaguely remember seeing him in something. But then I saw it, and I was too young to be crushing on anybody, but I was like, okay, I like this. He was like the first Idris Elba type figure in my life. Like, oh. He's handsome. Now here he looks a bit dated, he was too old for me to start with a crush for, so he aged out pretty fast for me, but I understand the ideal.
Yeah, he looks good. I mean, I think he's 10 years older than me, so he's like 55, and that is a good looking 55.
Yeah.
Period. No exception.
Yeah, it's a good looking 55.
Got his shirt off the movie all the way through.
Not in my range, but a good looking 55. I have the hereditary thing. Well, what you have and I don't have, and then trickle down. The affiliation for older people, I don't have that yet. I want you to stay right on in line with me.
Fair enough. So that's her one of her sticks is that occasionally she will daydream about spending time with Blair Underwood, and at least at the beginning of the movie, she doesn't have enough time to even get freaky with her imaginary Blair Underwood.
Yes, I did find that it was endearing that she made that own space for herself. Like, no, I don't have a man, but I also have Blair Underwood in my daydream. Like, I still have that box checked, whether I really have it checked or not. I got a man. His name is Blair Underwood. I thought that was a cute, non-dangerous way to have a relationship.
Yeah, and it actually, I think, informs a little bit of her character, too, because you have to know that every part of those fantasies is her talking to herself. So as the relationship, I mean, we can actually just spoil the whole relationship with that. At the beginning with Blair Underwood, since we own it, she can't get with him. As the movie progresses, she's a little bit more like, I think at one point when she's really dissatisfied herself, the Blair Underwood character actually, instead of playing along with her fantasy, started hitting her up for money, like any dude in her life might have done. And that was like the funniest bit, him coming out of talking to her and trying to flirt with her and stuff like that. But before we get to it, let me hold on to a couple of dollars or something like that. It's like, what? I ain't giving you no money.
It was right. I'm waiting for Denzel to start up this new movie. And the crazy part was you're Blair Underwood, so if you did need financial backing, I don't know. I'm gonna just say I need a good $5,000, $7,000, $10,000. This fool asked for $60, and I borrowed $60. Like, so you have a whole movie and you're $60 away. You need her $60 at the end of the day. I thought that was one of the things that it kind of doesn't make sense, but it also is very funny within that context. So
it was her talking to herself. She was like, her experience was informing Blair Underwood's character in that moment, because at that time, when it comes to dudes in her life, I guess that's what she was dealing with. They would be cool for a little while, but here you go, asking me for money or asking me to take care of you. I already got 3 kids to take care of. I ain't got time for all. You know what I'm saying? I thought that was cool. So, and then by the end, her and Blair have reached like you're saying, she found herself, and so their relationship can be what it is, and it's not the same as it was at the beginning. She's no longer depending on him. Mm-hmm.
Not to mention real Dick Trump's imaginary dick every time. Well, he should. She had that glow about her, so I think that by the time she broke up with Blair, it was for good reason.
Right. Definitely was. So we're near the beginning. She's disillusioned, talking to her son that's in jail. Basically, I think he's in jail because he got in the wrong car with somebody that was in his neighborhood, and they all got picked up for something, and he just got thrown in jail because of that. And so he's doing okay. You know, he's not a bad kid or anything like that. He just got caught up at the wrong place at the wrong time. And so she still feels beholding to kind of come visit him and stuff like that. And he's just like, hey, I need to do my own time. I'm fine. You take care of yourself, which I appreciate it. That's why I said the two of us would be, if we had to put ourselves in that with our mother, we would be the kid in jail for this particular movie.
Yeah.
It fits closer to how we were. So she leaves town, basically gets on first she goes and visits with her friend, Kay Rita, which is Samuel L. Jackson's wife.
Did not know that. You mean in real life?
Yeah.
Oh, I had no idea.
Every time I see her. That's LaTanya Richardson Jackson. Yeah,
okay.
So that's his plan. And Doris, I have to drop a name. Our mother's friend Doris kind of reminds me of her a little bit. And a couple others fit that same groove where you have your friend who's not no nonsense, but just kind of, you know how everybody has a read on everyone else's life. Like, I can read your life and say, well, all you need to do is X, Y, Z, but then you can flip it around and do the same thing to me, where you know, it's like being able to see objectively what's going on in someone else's life and point it out, but not necessarily being able to see your own. And that's not really the dynamic. Like, we didn't really get to meet Kay Rita to know what her thing would be, but she's that person in her life to be like, I know you're going
like
through, you're my friend.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Somebody that kind of knows what you're going through. And she was all on board. She was concerned about her being sick or something like that and wanting to leave. But once she knew that wasn't the case, that was her ace to be like, hey, you do what you got to do to get yourself right and feel good. And you got to have somebody like that in your life if you can.
Yeah, you got to have like a checkpoint or a co-signer to your ideas sometimes. I think our mom moved she moved to the South. I think that person for her was probably Miss Jumper, who gave her the okay to, cause you know, everyone, I could imagine when she told me she was leaving, it took me a minute to see it from not a mom standpoint, as just a woman, a person who has something she wants to do for herself, versus your proximity to me would be farther, or you sure you want to leave your family? Like, even though we weren't being taken care of by mom at that point, it still, we were still the children of the scenario in my head, where I'm doing this whether you agree or not type of thing still happen for us too. Right.
There's a certain point in time when, as a parent, you separate from your kid and you make a decision that's not for us, it's for me. And this is the time for her. It's like, this is not for you guys, it's for me. You're grown, you've been raised, deal. And so just moving back to the story, she basically, after she gets the good love from Kay Rita, said, go on about your way, peace be with you. She hops on a Greyhound, picks out a place on the map and decides to go. She goes to, settles on Butte, Montana. And one of the plot points that they bring up a couple of times, this is one of those points where I was thinking that you could have used a little bit more fleshing it out, because I don't know if you catch it the first time through. But she's riding on the bus, and as she's, they go through Kansas and all that kind of stuff, and as she's riding on the bus, when she's there in Colorado, she notices that there's mountains. And so now she's like, oh my God, now I got to go through these mountains, and that freaks her out. She gets freaked out by the vastness, or, what mountain ranges and stuff. But some people just can't deal with that type of thing. It's too big. It's too, wide open or whatever. And she just happens to be one of those people. And this is the moment when she has to go into the bathroom and psych herself up, you know, to get back on the bus and just ride there. And I like that moment. I like her psyching herself up. I like that that there was an issue there altogether in the first place. And you get a chance to meet the woman who helped change her life basically in the bathroom was Peaches, truck driver.
Right. Now, see, I remember, I like the scene in the bathroom with Peaches because, you know, just to give a little more detail, Juanita is in there cussing herself out to pump her up. She's talking to herself as if she's like one of her kids or one of her patients. And Peaches walks in and says, if I were you, I'd listen to her. And I thought that was a really cute scene. But I never picked up on the fact before you mentioned it that it was the mountains that started that kind of freak out for her. I just imagined I thought it was the trip overall. I guess I didn't notice that that's what triggered it. I thought she was just like, okay, like, am I really doing this? Period. I didn't know that she was triggered.
That's the whole thing. It passes by so quickly because there's another sequence when she's talking with her friend K. Rita, where K. Rita mentions that she occasionally has panic attacks, or anxiety attacks, and such a little thing. They hardly glanced on it, hardly at all. She mentioned it one time, if I'm not mistaken, and then. When the second time through, like I said, when they show, like she's looking out the window of the bus, they show the mountains, and then she's like, oh my God, no, and then so it's like if you follow it from there, the second she sees the mountains, the next scene is her talking to the bus driver, trying to, you know, basically she's panicking that she has to go through these mountains, and then of course, you know, you have the scene with Peaches where she says, after she's talked herself up. She said, I listened to her. And so basically she gets back on the bus and we get that beautiful, empowering scene of her having a quiet, well, not quiet, but sings a song about herself to herself, imagining all the people and the lights and stuff like that. All the people in the bus are singing along, and she just kind of gives her enough of a powerful motivator to get back on there and face her fears and do what she needs to do. And I thought that was really a really nice sequence.
She tugged at my heartstrings with that a little bit. It made me soften up to her a little bit more. Actually, her character in this movie at all made her soften up to me a little bit more, probably because I never correlated her to my mom before. So she's always been a good actor in my book, but slightly irritating to me, and for a reason I couldn't really pinpoint. But, you know, that scene began to open it up for me, like, oh, this is pretty cool. I can relate to just, like I said, the quirkiness of just bursting into your own song about you, and in your world, everybody's joining in, and whether it did or not, it made the bus trip so much more enjoyable, even though it wasn't even happening for real.
Right, yeah. That was strictly to kind of psych herself up. Definitely something that we all got to do every now and again. So I enjoyed that. And then, of course, she arrives in Butte, and it's, you know, just nothing bad happens. I mean, but that's when she meets Peaches again, who's a truck driver, and happened to catch her at this spot. And they start talking, which I thought was a nice conversation that they were having. You know, she got to tell Peaches a little bit about her life, and you know, you kind of get to see a little bit of a friendship blooming. And they decide, you know, she decides to take her to a little further down the road to Paper Moon. So she thought she was going to be in Butte, found someone on the journey who took her a little further to someplace she probably never would have even thought to stop. I mean, they said it.
Yeah, she said it doesn't even show up on the map. It's so small.
Right.
You know it. Google can't find you. You out there.
Yeah, so rides back to the new spot, Paper Moon, Montana. And that's where the story wasn't begin, but that's where her interactions and just kind of starting a new life kind of begin right there in this small town.
Which I love. Every step of the way, she just Yeah, I like the unknownness of the town. Like there's a good, gives me a good feeling to see a story where somebody has to pick up in a totally different environment, and especially when the environment begins to change around that person. Like you can tell they needed that breath of fresh air. They needed that no nonsense black lady with blue fingernail polish to shake things up for them. Like that, everybody needs to shake up sometimes. So I like that whole dynamic of trying to fit in and ultimately making other people fit you.
Yeah, and that's how she begins. Starts working at the little restaurant that was recommended to her by Peaches. And the guy I totally liked, the actor. Yeah, that's Adam Beach. He's actually, I don't know if anybody saw Suicide Squad. He was in it for like 5 minutes. He played the one guy on that team that got their head blown off, Slipknot. But I've seen him over the years in a bunch of different things.
One thing that intrigued me was the cooking aspect, was the fact that she's in Paper Moon, Montana, and you would imagine at the little restaurant that she stopped in that what she wants for breakfast is totally doable. What she wanted, bacon, 2 fried eggs, and whole wheat toast. And he's like, no, we have croissant. We have poached eggs and hollandaise sauce. They're like, can you just put a little butter in the pan and fry those eggs up for me? Hold the sauce. And everybody else around who has just gotten used to this way of life is just like, you know what? That sounds good.
Yeah,
well, we say that for years.
So of course, yeah, that's the thing I liked about it. Because sometimes you want just something simple, you know. You don't want elaborate food every day. I can understand where he's coming from. He wanted to create an experience, but it's like that is fine for dinner, but maybe they want simple breakfast food, and so that's where she starts working with this Native American chef at his restaurant. And it's a nice look. It's a nice come up, you know, that she came there with nothing except her idea of trying to change her life and got a job right out the gate by just being honest. And I like the beginning of their relationship, just he's teaching her how to cook like he cooks a little bit. And at the same time, she's working a couple of weeks with him just to get started, setting up breakfast for him. And all the people like it. All the people are nice.
Yeah,
you know,
I like
that
the
similar
family.
with that too. Yeah. Oh, his family's really nice. Yeah. But I
like them. They all are very endearing, and I did like their fusion of her traditional cooking versus him teaching her some new things. I enjoyed that, and it picked up. And I would imagine if there were at least another restaurant in Paper Moon, maybe he'd have some more creative leeway. But you gotta have the basics covered too. You see,
Right. And then, within the story, I guess they've shown that she's been working there a couple of weeks or whatever. They kind of montage that time in the movie. And, you get up to, I guess, Jess, the chef, is an alcoholic, a binge alcoholic, and has a day when, you know, he's remembering stuff from the war, and he's useless. Apparently his family and everybody in town just knows that on this day he's just useless. And Juanita's having none of that. And I love that. I love that she went over there and decided to, it's like, hey, I'm working with you. We all got issues, you know, let's come on now. And she, you know, kind of took him out of his funk to get back.
No pity on my watch.
Yeah, no pity. And, you know, that's in the same time that she's dealing with her son who's about to possibly go to jail and, you know, has to get to a place where she's just like, look, you've created this situation for yourself and you don't have to let it play out. And that's hard as a parent to let your child just go through whatever it is that they've created.
Yeah, it's hard. And I would see that as being, since I'm not a parent, the only thing I can equate it to is maybe in a relationship or maybe in marriage where, like you said, you can clearly sometimes see what seems best for someone else and what they could do, what they should do, or you could perfectly see the game plan if they take this approach. But at a certain point, love means you got to take your hands off the steering wheel, and you have to just trust that they'll get there the way they're supposed to get there. And I think that when you're trying to change, maybe it's your significant other, at a certain point, I think you should anyway, at a certain point, you realize nothing that you can do, there's nothing you can do to do or say to influence this person to see it your way or to take your plan. And sometimes the best thing you can do is turn the focus back on you. So she has done what she can do for her kids, and the most that she can do now is go refill her tank so she'll have something to give to her children the next time they need something. She gotta go fill back up her tank, because even though she sees a better way for them, they've got to figure it out for themselves.
Yeah, I agree.
I've been in that situation too.
Speak a little close to home, huh? Next in the movie, they go up to a powwow up in, I guess it's the mountains, where her newfound family drive up to I guess it's a Native American get together where they're feeding a whole bunch of folks. And this is one of those times. Did you realize that she was having an anxiety attack at this point in the movie? Like she just kind of
maybe not the first time, but the second time I definitely did. Just the whole atmosphere of it was something that I was totally interested in. Like I would love to see how, we privy to see how Native Americans live now and some of their rituals and cultures, like directly from them. It just seems pretty cool to me.
Yeah, there's something to be said for living in nature and still having a connection with the natural world. And they seem to really, lean in to that. Especially when, didn't seem like there was any judgment either. She was having an anxiety attack. They came to her, brought her into, one of the teepees and sat her down, and it was like spiritual and healing and calming, and everybody was patient with her. So, that's a community right there. And at the end of that gathering in the evening, everyone's doing their headdresses and dancing around. It was a really nice cultural and spiritual part of the movie to me, like you're saying, because of just some of the context that we don't get to see very often, especially in movies.
Right. And even down to when they were making breakfast, I'm like, oh, they eat bacon? Like bacon? I never knew that. I felt like there was even more of my peaks at that point.
They're people that like good tasting food. I mean, how can you?
I don't know why pork and Native Americans, I never knew whether they did or not, or that they didn't want bacon at the restaurant. I didn't know if it was a thing, but okay, you guys are bacon friendly. That's fine. Duly noted.
And this actually speaks to one of my criticisms of the movie. Remember I said it was moving too fast, or moving kind of fast for me. In this part, when you're talking about breakfast and the next morning, it seems like they're closer than the movie's shown us up to this point. Now, don't get me wrong, they've spent a lot of time together. She's helping cook, but most of that time that you see is all in montage, spending time as a part of, kind of showing that she's doing this on a routine basis, with the clock bit every morning at 5:30 and getting up. And so by the time you get to this sequence where, she kind of gone off by herself for the morning and to just kind of get her mind right, and he comes to find her and they have that really touching moment. There's a moment when he starts to outline everything that she's done for him. And I was like, what has she done to him exactly? And he just listed 2 things, and they're big 2 things. She helped him get his business going, and she helped rescue him when he was in despair over his friend with the alcohol, being with the alcohol. So those are 2 big beats, and she did help him with that a lot. But it felt like there was more to it. You know what I mean? Like, I felt like if he had one more thing that he could have, attached to her being there and stuff like that, or maybe, I don't know, maybe add a little bit more context
I saw it a little differently. I felt like it hit the major points because you have just the fact of she changed him. The fact of the matter of when she first came into the restaurant and he was set in his ways, he wasn't talking. The other family indicated that he really didn't speak a whole sentence. Like, he was really shut off altogether. And I think her presence brought the life back out of him. And then I think where the relationship changed was that day, where she didn't have pity on him, but she also didn't just yell at him or judge him and leave. She stayed, talked through it, used the alcohol to bandage his wounds, which I thought was funny. Like, let me pour this out on you right now and pour it out. And I think that was like that made it solid. Like, that's where it changed from just a friendship to that closeness where you can tell somebody your deepest, darkest, and they don't judge you and they help you through it. And then right afterwards is where he gets to return the favor with her anxiety attack. So I would imagine being out in the middle of nowhere, you don't have much of a social life, so you're spending a lot of time in the restaurant day to day. I would imagine that they did actually get a lot closer because it seems like a simple way of life anyway. So I don't think, and it seems like when you're over 40, 50, that age range, it probably don't take you that long to like or dislike somebody.
Yeah, there's truth to that. It's like you like who you like and you don't question it as hard as you get older because, life is fleeting. So if you find somebody that you like, might as well spend as much time as you can.
Yeah. I think ultimately she gives just that quintessential, the nerdy girl takes off her glasses and lets down her hair, and now she's a supermodel type of thing. Like, his wasn't as drastic, but in those montages, I think it was showing him change and open up as just a person, like get new energy, and I think that was because of her.
Because, by the time he came back, his nose was wide open. He's singing songs in a restaurant. And I understood her point of view where it's like she liked the attention, but at the same time, she didn't want to have this take control over her agenda. It's like, I need to go and still do a couple of things. I didn't come. Yeah,
I could be needed at home.
Right.
I can help facilitate drug rehab programs back in Columbus. She was trying to get to the beach, which pulled at my heartstrings, the beach in California. And I'm like, Alfre, I feel you. Juanita, me too. I understand. So, I respected that. Like, it wasn't a 20-year-old love. It was okay, I like you, and when I get done doing what I'm doing, I'll come back. And I love that. I love that because, like I said, it shows the truth to yourselfness part. Because ultimately, I feel like had it just been a regular love story, they get married and paper moon and live happily ever after, there would have always been that nagging, what if I had done what I really wanted to do? I still think she needed that experience for herself, where it will always be that big what if hanging in the background. And I'm happy he didn't come along.
Yeah.
Of the romantic in me wanted him to, just go together. but I appreciated the fact that her relationship to herself meant something to her. And no, you just be here. If you're a man of your word, you really will be here when I get back. And I appreciated that. Not to jump directly to the end of the movie, but I did.
Well, we're nearly there anyway. I think the next point is that her son came, got an early release from prison and just showed up, which I thought was really nice. You know, I love that. Because it seems like that would be a perfect place for him. I got the warm and fuzzies because I can imagine especially after having been in prison and then having lived, like he said, you know, she wanted to say, when she was talking to him in jail, she's like, I just wanted to, there's got to be more to life than Columbus. And he was like, tell me about it. So him being out there in all those woods and that fresh air and knowing what we know already about the town, I was like, this cat's going to love it here. Especially after being in prison for that time, you know, and everybody's friendly. Everybody knows Juanita and knows her story, so they know his story, you know.
And I think that's kind of dope because that was literally like my experience. When I ultimately did go to Boonville to be with our mom, it was the same type of thing. When I got there and I saw the vast nothingness, like, we live here now. Like, I remember that day. It was just, you just wanted to cry. Like, it was a culture shock like none other. But I guess I saw this as my thing, but I didn't see it as me because I had the people you just start to see like I was around some really nice people. It ended up being a different way of life, but just peaceful and, I don't know, just going to different things and finding out things that's happening around the neighborhood. I would equate probably the Native American ritual to when Mommy took me to an auction, and it was like my first real one. It was just little different culture things that were completely different, but that were still fun when I let my guard down. And in hindsight, it is a really good experience. I have good feelings when I think about being down south in the middle of Mississippi, which is so funny because it's hard for me to translate when you say her son loved it and just getting out of jail. I think my husband would love it, but I can't convince him of it because it's something you have to do. So I'm kind of thankful that I, too, got to experience it alone or not from here, like, you know, not in a relationship or not clouded by what moving down there as a family would have been versus just coming down there and taking the experience for what it is. I can relate to that on the son part.
Yeah, I think just, like you're saying, sometimes you just got to take the bull by the horns and do it. I think if you guys would just go down there and spend, but not, I'm talking about a nice little chunk of time, you know, 2-3 weeks down in a spot like that where you can kind of meet people and experience what you're saying. Because there's something to be said for that taking a step out your own, out your normal lane to see what's going on. And I thought it was nice when basically like he had coordinated with Jess her son had coordinated with Jess to get down there without her knowing about it. And it was such a nuanced thing too. You know, he gets in there, she's happy to see him, he introduces himself, and you can tell almost immediately without them saying it that, oh, he's been in contact with these people. He's known to them. They knew he was coming, you know. It's like, oh, how'd you like getting up in such and such? And he's answering questions, and it's like, oh, okay, so this has been in the mix.
John Brandon. Yeah.
You know, which is basically the only friction that they get between Juanita and Jess is just that he didn't tell her that he was coming because her son told him not to, but that was the big conflict, you know. And I love seeing, you know, her son working in the kitchen with Jess to learn the kitchen, and like I feel like that's a good life for him, you know.
You know what? I'm going to touch on that. When Juanita goes to get Jess out of his funk, he says that the reason that he feels that way, I guess it was maybe D-Day or something, it had to do with him being in the military and him making a bad call, which ultimately his team or people under him lost their lives, one of them being Eddie, some person that he, was close to. And he ended up telling her that he envisioned coming back from the war and cooking alongside Eddie and showing him the ropes. And I feel that he got that from Juanita's son coming back. Like, you didn't get to do it with Eddie, but you did get to do it. And I think that probably tugged on his heartstrings.
I remember that, and I did not connect the two. But that makes that moment even more powerful when you think about it and you connect it. Like I said, this is definitely one I didn't think, I thought it was cool watching that first time, but it didn't strike me as dynamic when I first started watching it. But it has a lot of little nooks and crannies that you can dig into and enjoy, to touch your heartstrings.
Yes.
And so by the end of the movie we're at now, the moment I thought was really the sweetest. There's, Jess is resigned himself to, she's decided she's going to move on, go to California, see that beach that she's been talking about. And there's no plans for getting back together and her coming there. She still may come back. There's a high percentage of that, but she didn't want to mislead him because she's like, I need to go finish what I'm doing. If I come back this way, then we can start talking about what we mean to each other, but I need to do this first. And when he's loading up the truck, there's a moment when, he's talking to her saying, oh, you should just, like California's not that fantastic. And he, just being silly. And she grabs his hand as he's walking away from her. She turns around and she looks at him very sweetly and just brings him in for this really sweet, warm kisses just for the two of them. And I was like, that is a moment. That is that was the moment initially that I thought to use when I was making the art piece for this one.
Mm-hmm.
Is that moment when they kiss. And it's just the only reason it got beat out by a couple of other images because I didn't like the image of the car door in the shot the way it is. So that's the only thing that stopped me from utilizing it. But I love that moment.
Okay. Yeah, it was very endearing. It was very, this is love now. Like, now we can tell that there's love there from both parts and not just
and she initiated
mutual like or mutual affection.
And the fact that she initiated it meant something.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of like, don't want you to leave, but I understand that you have to leave, so I'm just going to keep it cool and not be all, emotional or whatever. But it was nice of her that she pulled him in for that. And then, of course, we get the final sweet, grand gesture that he renamed his entire restaurant to include her at the end, calling it Shay J.
Yes, I thought that was cute. And then kudos to her on another sticking to your guns. Oh, that's cute. I'm still leaving. Thank you for changing the restaurant for me, but I'm still going to this ocean. So I still gotta go. So in the moment, I'm like, oh, it would be nice if he went with her, but I like how they chose to do it anyway. And they really don't give much detail. Where did she stay in California? How long did it take her to get there? They just kind of flash forward to her walking on the beach. She's walking with Blair Underwood, of course, and I'm like, oh, how fitting.
Yeah.
Blair didn't show up at Paper Moon at all. You would have welcomed there.
That's true. I didn't think about that. Yeah, he did not show up while she was there. But now that she's on the beach.
She had the real thing. And it was like there's an ongoing joke throughout the movie after Jess and Juanita do finally physically hook up. And everywhere they go, both of them, like, what are you taking? Is it something, do you have a glow? Like, Did you get a makeover?
No,
and I love how the
makeover.
movie I love how the movie ends with after her and Blair break up and he's like, did you get a makeover? And in my notes I wrote like, no, she didn't get a makeover. She got a just over. And I loved it.
Yeah, you helped me see the validity of that ending a little bit more, because I thought it was a little ambiguous to not say she's going back to Jess outright, but at the same time, at least in my own head canon, she went back after she got.
Oh yeah, I definitely feel like she went back. She went back. One clue that I got that she was going back is the fact that even though she was in California, she did break up with Blair Underwood right then. Like, I don't need you right then. So I would say if she had no desire to go back, she might have kept that a little bit more open-ended, but it was like a final breakup scene with Blair Underwood to me. And knowing what we know about her family in Western Columbus, Ohio, she'd be a fool to go back there versus going back to Paper Moon. She seemed like she enjoyed herself a lot more. So I think having somewhere like that to come back to probably made California a little bit more sweeter anyway. Because, when the guy gives you that, I'll be here when you get back, it was like his cosign. So I think that's good.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. That is a good benchmark for this movie. He gave her something that, even if she has to, because she's going to have to go back to Columbus eventually. But if I were speculating as to what happens after this movie ends, I could definitely see her moving. It's like, okay, well, I've decided that I'm not going to be in Columbus anymore. I'm going to take my stuff and move it here to this town. Her son's already there. Let's face it, her favorite one. She loves her kids, I'm sure all equally, but it's like her favorite son moved there, and the one that was always doing good just happened to get caught up in the wrong thing. So, there's that you have, and, it's like I could see her other kids coming to visit at some point, like that's a nice thing.
Yeah, they would get a break if they open their eyes up to accept it. But I'm sure they're going to have that culture shock, I would say, that I had if they weren't prepared for it. Like the older son, he got his culture shock in prison. So, heck yeah, I'll take the nice people of Paper Moon. But the daughter who has to go out at least every 2 days, it's going to take her a minute to find out what's good about the peaceful place of Paper Moon, I would think. Like I feel like it would be more of a fight with her and with the younger son. But ultimately, I think it would be good for them.
I agree. And that's the movie itself. I think Juanita was overall a good movie. Definitely something you can enjoy. Definitely something to check out if you're looking for no huge commitment, hour and a half or whatever. You're in and out. Great film for that. And just a fun movie overall. So
if her name was Stella, I could see this being reminiscent to how Stella got her groove back. How Stella got her groove back was a good reference point for me to know that the relationship wasn't the most important thing there. Because I think she got what maybe Stella never got, which was that, the relationship with herself outweighed that getting a new guy to revitalize you. Like sometimes that's cool, but it doesn't have as many long-term effects as doing something for you that's just for you.
May have to talk about Stella got her groove back, because I like what you're saying, and I'm trying to think about the movie and everything like that. It give you more of a Hollywood ending, that movie than this one. Like that, if this movie was done in like a typical Hollywood fashion, the end shot would be her and Jess kissing or her coming back to him. Like they give you that. That's one of the reasons I was kind of critical, because I wanted to see that, but I can appreciate not getting it. And same with, like with Stella, and it was more centered on the relationship, necessarily that between her and Winston, versus her and herself.
Right. Juanita got a little bit more. I mean, Juanita got the man and the fulfillment, so she kind of went. She just didn't get a young Jamaican man.
Like they both got the dude at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else is Jeff gonna do? Ain't nobody new coming through that town. Peaches don't want him. You post a man the way you her to finish her trip. You'll be all right. She'll be better off for you when she gets there.
Well, this has been fun. Moving along, I'm going to definitely put the piece that I'm working on based on this picture, on this movie. I'll post that once we have this one ready to put up. But I think we're going to have a good time. Like, how can people find you?
Oh, yeah, if you guys have any other great movie suggestions, you want to keep the discussion going, feel free to reach out to me across my Twitter and Instagram social medias. Is probably the easiest way to get in touch with me. My IG is pretty_peculiar_. I have a bit easier of a name on Twitter, which is Mrs. Ashley J _ASHLEYJ_.
All right. And my Instagram is scott.fain. And we'll be posting this on there and on YouTube and a few other places. So stay tuned for the next one. And we'll see you guys next week.
Bye-bye.